This fiery king himself dates all the way back to Monster Hunter 1 and has been in every subsequent game since then. Rathalos. I'm starting this video off with a bang. I promise I'm not normally this bad at Monster Hunter, but I flew too close to the sun with his Rathalos and he got me. I had just finished hunting some golden Raytheons and a flaming Espinos, and figured Charizard would be a walk in the park, but he is not. And he hurt me real bad. Anyway, welcome back everyone to the 3rd edition of my Greatsword themed Monster Hunter Sunbreak tier list. For those of you that missed the first 2 editions, the cards are up here. The drill is that I hunt a select species of monsters and rank them empirically based on potions used, alternative healing received, time to kill them, and the cards given. They are then ranked in a tier list and compared to all previous monsters that I've previously made videos on. This time I'm hunting winged wyverns, but due to their massive roster of 19 unique wyverns in Sunbreak, this video will only focus on 6 that are arguably most like each other and most identifiable. But back to the poster child of Monster Hunter, the entire series. This iconic fire-breathing dragon will most likely be present in all Monster Hunter games going forward, and for good reason. He's appropriately challenging and packs quite a punch with his burns, poison status, and at times frustrating combat style. From a GS perspective, his head and his tail are what I prioritize the most. A unique feature for most flying wyverns is that once their tail is removed, so is their majority of damage. Despite suffering all types of damage from this iconic creature, I managed to avenge my death by killing 2 Rathaloses while using 5 potions, receiving 9 Palico heals, all during an average kill time of 7 minutes and 17 seconds with that one card. One of the few monsters with hotter flames than a Rathalos, however, is a Silver Rathalos, also known as a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Silver Rathalos is extremely similar to Rathalos in regards to his movement, attack, hitboxes, etc., but he has a few more tricks up his sleeve. He's a one-man pyrotechnic show. His frequency and intensity of fire bending is ludicrous, but honestly, it's really cool whenever he shoots these blue little exploding Dippin' Dots all over the place. Another main differentiating factor is how noticeably different his physical appearance changes when he becomes enraged and begins glowing like hot embers. This is known as his incandescent form. Now, if you thought he carded me like his base form, you would be mistaken. However, he's quite the challenge, and this is aptly reflected in his tier list at the end. Overall, my Silver Rathalos hunts took 8 potions, 23 Palico heals, and an average time to kill of 11 minutes and 3 seconds with no cards. Now every king needs a queen, and this queen is a toxic monster. Raytheon's choice of pain is through inflicting deadly poison. Luckily, you can mitigate the poison damage with armor skills such as poison resistance or Teostra's Blessing. I'll go ahead and admit this is the first video in this series where I actually switched down an armor skill, and I switched in Teostra's Blessing, because if I had not done that, then every single one of the monsters in this video, I would have had to spend time using antidotes and healing, and it would have inflated their difficulty scale off the charts. So I sacrificed some damage, put in Teostra's Blessing, and helped manage these fights. Raytheon, like Rathalos, has a near identical fighting experience, so instead of restating the obvious, I plan to use this time to reveal a tragic event that I witnessed. As many of you know, Hematars are endangered, weak little creatures. They're the prey of many of these monsters that we fight, and given their conservation status, it's highly discouraged to kill them. But alas, my greatsword drifted and ended one's life. In its final moments of despair, it released a crab death scent and summoned his mother, Damo Hematar. I tried to knock some sense into the crab and end this ceaseless violence, but she was hell-bent on avenging her offspring, hell-bent to the point of seeking revenge on me by squirting water, and then by following me to the Raytheon in the next area and continuing her assault. Finally, she got the hint after seeing what I had done to the Raytheon, and she took her leave. Shortly after, I ended the life of Rayquaza as a warning to all crabkin, and this was accomplished without any potions, 6 off heals, and an average kill time of 4 minutes and 57 seconds with no cards. If Rathalos gets an upgrade, so does his queen. It only makes sense that Raytheon also gets a powerful upgrade, and boy does she get a huge one. The difficulty difference between Raytheon and Golden Raytheon is absurd. What's also absurd is how deadly her poison would be if I didn't have Teostra's Blessing. In fact, it becomes transformed into a super toxin known as Venom that is no longer negated with poison resistance. Luckily, Teostra's Blessing still negates it, and that's why I used it against her as well. Drawing inspiration from Silver Rathalos in regards to visible changes upon aggression, Golden Raytheon can enter an incandescent phase as well and become even more deadly. I wish Golden Raytheon would have had a slight color alteration to her flame, maybe a green or a gold, to further differentiate her from the male counterpart, but alas, she too spews out blue intense flames. From a GF's perspective, the fight is pretty similar to Silver Rathalos, but it's worth mentioning that their head is no longer a weak spot, which is quite unfortunate for my playstyle. Therefore, for Golden Raytheons, it's best to take out their wings and legs. Overall, my Golden Raytheon hunt took 6 potions, 21 off heals, and an average kill time of 10 minutes and 54 seconds with no cart. Now this thorny dragon was a first for me. He was absent in 4U and absent in World. I had no idea that he was even present in the series before I fought him in Sunbreak. Fun fact about his head too, it's made of diamonds, or pretty much. It doesn't break to my greatsword at all. His neck does though. Here's another fun fact. He's deceptively painful. Not much of a fire spammer like his cousin Rathalos. And he's not quite as poisonous as Raytheon, but he does have access to both those elements. His method of destruction is to charge the crap out of you till you die. Up until this point, all of the monsters I reviewed before, which happens to be 16 if you're keeping score, none of them have caused me to cart more than once during a run. But this Thorn Demon caused me to cart twice. But luckily, due to my balancing of key determinants of difficulty, it did not skew the results in the end too badly. Espinos is an interesting monster, and although it has similar fighting styles and movement compared to Rathalos and Raytheon, it is nowhere near as identical to them as they are to each other. Espinos feels as if he must charge at every moment compared to the other two, and it looks like he took lessons from Tigrex. Despite this being just his base form, he's quite formidable and felt similar in terms of difficulty to Rathalos. Along with my 2 cards that he gave me, he made me drink 5 potions, plead for heals from my Palico 7 times, and was finally killed in 7 minutes and 41 seconds. By now you probably know what's happening next. Probably the upgraded form of Espinos. Yes, what's harder than an Espinos? How about one that's on fire? Yes, this is Flaming Espinos. And as you can see in this short little film, he's strong enough to take down an Elder Dragon like Teostra. Anytime they introduce a monster with a skill that can one-hit you, their difficulty inevitably goes up. Even if you are lucky enough to live through it with like Divine Protection or something, or dodge it or face take it, or get away from it, inevitably someone in your group is most likely to die from it. To be fair, my followers deserve that for throwing bombs at me. From a GS perspective, Flaming Espinos can be quite deadly due to the locking down of drawn-out attacks and getting caught down by a Teostra Nova, but other than that, he's quite enjoyable to fight. He flies less than the Raytheon and Rathalos family, which makes dealing damage to him more enjoyable and consistent. Truth be told, he should have caused a lot more deaths than his base form, but that's just the way the experiment played out, and it would be unethical to change the results, especially with just a sample size of 2 runs. If I were to increase the number of runs to a larger sample size, the deaths caused by Flaming Espinos would most certainly pass base Espinos. I think I'm saying the name wrong, but y'all know who I'm talking about. Regardless, Flaming Espinos caused me to use 6 potions, 19 Palico heals, and an average clear time of 9 minutes and 50 seconds with just 1 cart. And now for my favorite part of each video, the data analysis. As is customary, I have here the outline criteria studied to determine the difficulty for each monster over 2 hunts and how their ranking falls with respect to each other. I have in blue the monster and the average data set that's used to calculate their tier. Coming in dead last is none other than the Poison Queen herself, Raytheon, with 3 points. A considerable distance ahead of her is her counterpart Rathalos with 9 points. Following him is Espinos with 10, just barely edging ahead due to the extra cart. Golden Raytheon comes next in line with 14 points, and again just squeaking by due to the merit of the pure lethality, in this case is Flaming Espinos with 15 points. And sitting in first place, the true king at top, is Silver Rathalos with 17 points. He earns this spot due to his high persistent damage requiring high persistent heals, and the time required to kill him. Now putting it all together, we get an updated tier list shown here, and comparing this to previous video tier lists, we begin to see minor differentiation in the ranks as we notice more and more point inflation. The more monsters added, the more ranks given, the more points awarded, and the further the tiers will separate, which is a good thing. It's worth noting that I did do some minor data manipulation to accurately account for the extra hunt taken on the Leviathan video. I didn't notice this on my last video. I should have when I was looking at the data. The results don't change, but going forward they might, so I went ahead and addressed it now. I did a minor data correction where I omitted the 3rd run to make a consistent 2-2-2 for all videos going forward. What this does whenever you take the average value potions used or healing received, you're dividing by 2, so you're consistently now getting a number that's whole or an integer of 0.5 rather than a third or 2/3 value, which created artificial separation. It's confused to explain here, but if anyone's interested or concerned, they can message me or comment and I can be very thorough with the response. Regardless, when I visualize the final updated tier set in its entirety, it validates the internal validity of this study due to the results remaining logically consistent with what we know to be true. For example, if the final results showed Toby Kadashi above all else, or even above something like a flaming Espinos, there would be a huge problem in the methodology, because that can't exist. Luckily in this case, it's tracking beautifully with generally agreed upon consensus of difficulty of monsters. Thank you everyone that tuned in again, and if this video does well enough, I plan to release the remaining cluster of flying wyverns, and will continue to update the final ultimate tier list. Liking and subscribing reduces my chance of further cards to low tier monsters, and I thoroughly appreciate that. Farewell.